Oh my goodness gracious. So we have a lot to talk about today. Scott and I are going to dig into all things regarding the astrology, big transits coming, and of course the presidential election in the United States. So
Mm.
just a light topic, right,
Oh
Scott?
yeah. Yes. Love these light topics. They're my favorite.
Oh my gosh. So, everybody that's new to my YouTube channel, Scott and I have done a lot of videos together. And if this is your first time connecting with Scott, you're in for a real treat. I love the way that he describes astrology. And I feel, Scott, like you talk about it in a way that everyone can understand it. Because sometimes
Mm.
you watch like an astrology video or you read an article and you're like, what in the heck are they even talking about? And with your approach to it, I feel like it's practical and you explain it in a way that everyone understands. And so,
Mm.
if even if this is somebody's first astrology video that they're ever listening to, I think they're going to get a lot out of it. So, I think we just got to dig in.
Yeah, let's dig in. Dive
Okay,
in.
cool. Yeah, and if everybody watching, if you're interested in my work, Scott's work, all the info will be in the description below this video, so check that out. Because Scott's actually got a really amazing book called The Basics of Astrology, and it's very reasonably priced for everything you get for it. So I'll include that link below too. And his website is theweeklytransit.com. And I, of course, am Dallisa Hocking, a fifth generation psychic medium, and my website is spiritandspark.com. All right, now that we got that out of the way, I think we jump into mid July. So Scott has shared that Mars and Uranus are going to be conjunct in the sign of Taurus. So if you want to show
Yes.
us what that looks like as a visual, and then
Well,
tell
yes.
us what it means.
Yes, yes. So let's begin with the beginning, Delisa, with what do these symbols mean? So all these symbols are made up of at least one of these three symbols on top, which is the circle of spirit, your eternal soul, no beginning, no end. That's what the circle of spirit represents, your eternal soul. The cross of matter represents the four elements of matter: fire, earth, air, water. And then the crescent of receptivity, which represents giving, receiving, teaching, learning. So in looking at Uranus, Uranus is all three of the root symbols. It's a cross of matter with a circle of spirit beneath and a crescent of receptivity on either side, symbolizing your eternal soul in the world of matter and what makes it unique, what makes it unpredictable. Uranus is the primordial sky god, the planet of revolution, rebellion, innovation, independence, and the unexpected. Mars is a circle of spirit with an arrow pointed in a clear direction, symbolizing your eternal soul and how it acts, how it moves forward without thinking. Mars is the god of war, the planet of action, aggression, and conflict. So these two planets are joining up together in Taurus. So in order to understand the nature of the signs, you want to ask yourself four questions. If you know the answer to these four questions, then it gives you a clear understanding of the nature of the sign. The four questions are: number one, what is the element? Number two, what is the modality? Number three, what is the planetary ruler? And number four, what is the symbol? So looking at Taurus, what is the element? The element is earth. Earth is more introverted than extroverted because earth is something where you are initiating the touch more so than earth is initiating the touch with you. Earth can provide structure and a foundation, or it can bury you. It's all how you're working with the energy. So remember, nothing is good or bad about what we're sharing today. It's just laying out how the planets and stars, the energies that they're emanating to us, and it's up to us to determine how best to work with the energy for ourselves and those around us. Now, the second question, what is the modality? The modality of Taurus is fixed. The modality is determined by the time of the season the sun transits through a sign. When the sun is transiting through a fixed sign, it's the middle of the season. So too, when the sun transits through Taurus, it's the middle of spring in the northern hemisphere. These are the stabilizer signs. These are the signs that are stabilizing the energies of the season. These are the signs that are very loyal, but can also be somewhat stubborn. It's all how you're working with the energy. The planetary ruler of Taurus is Venus. Venus is a circle of spirit on top of a cross of matter, symbolizing your eternal soul in the world of matter and what it senses, the 5 physical senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. Venus is Lady Luck, the goddess of love and beauty, the planet of relationships. The symbol for Taurus is the bull. Here's the horns or nose ring of the bull, however you want to look at it. But the bull is that creature that's most serene in a wide open field with plenty of space around it, the cool grass beneath it, the warm sun baking on its back, and all the fragrances of the flowers, the forest, the field carrying into its senses. But if anyone gets too close to the bull, tries to crowd or move the bull, they meet a very agitated bull. And so this is ruled by the goddess of love, and the god of war is transiting through the sign that is ruled by the goddess of love.
So I have to
And
stop you
so,
right there
yes,
because you just got done saying that Taurus does its best when it has free reign. You picture the bull out in the meadow and it just is taking in all the air and the sunshine. But then you just got done saying Mars is going to get really close next to conjunct Uranus. So the god of war is encroaching onto the fixed earth bull's space. So to me, and I'm just I love astrology. I'm an enthusiast, right? So I love these conversations because I love just bringing it down to like the core essence of what this could feel like or be like. So if we're talking about the god of war next to the bull who doesn't like anything next to it, I'm imagining like earth tremoring, earth shaking, potentially combusting energy. Would that be fair to say?
I would think so. Absolutely. I mean, this is the bull does not want, like, when you just look at the symbol for Mars, I mean, it looks like here's this point, like imagine like poking that into the side of a bull. I mean, a bull's not going to like that. This is a very invasive and aggressive looking, sort of penetrating symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And the bull does not want to be penetrated. It wants its space. You also think about it in terms of Venus, the goddess of love, is the planetary ruler of Taurus. Mars is the god of war. So whenever the god of war is transiting through a sign that represents, that is ruled by the goddess of love, that's creating tension.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the planet of revolution transiting through Taurus, and the bull doesn't want that revolution energy. It wants that stable energy. Now, Uranus is also the planetary ruler of a fixed sign, which is Aquarius, but Aquarius and Taurus, they're both fixed, so they make a strong aspect to each other, but it's a 90-degree angle, which is tense. Air and earth don't mix. So Uranus transiting through Taurus is very tense. It doesn't feel good. All you have to do is think about what has happened in on this earth since Uranus moved into Taurus. That was in 2019. What has happened since then? It
Everything.
hasn't been, it's been a revolution of our values, of our sense of security. Like, you go back in history, when was the last time Uranus was in Taurus? That was between 1935 and 1942. That was during the Great Depression and World War II. The time before that was 1851 to 1858. That's when people were so desperate that they got in a horse and buggy and traveled thousands of miles across the continental US to put a pan in water and hope that gold would appear. And so we're here again. So this is not an easy time in human history. Anytime Uranus transits through Taurus, buckle up, because your sense of security is going to feel threatened.
And this is on July 15th, I believe. You were showing me in the chart before we jumped
Exactly.
on. I mean,
Yes.
that's literally a few days from now. So
Yes.
we're probably already feeling the undercurrents, I would think, or feeling like something's about to shift or change. And for everybody in the US, I mean, you can't turn on the TV or the news without hearing about the presidential election. the recent debate that Biden and Trump just had.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of us are feeling unsettled. And for me, and I'm sure a lot of people who are sensitive to energy, it's like they're feeling the earth underneath them rattle. And they're like, is it going to calm down or is it going to turn into a full blown earthquake? So the fact that this is happening in just a few days where they really come together in this conjunction, Mars and Uranus, it feels like it's not going to calm down. And I mean,
Well,
spoiler alert. I mean, you've already told me things that we discussed in our pre-meeting. I know it's not going to calm down.
yeah, if you're feeling unsettled right now, Dallisa, good. Good. I hope everybody out there is feeling a little bit unsettled, because that is what the energy is calling us to do, is to wake up, to really check what is it that you value. Like, you should be looking at your bank account. You should be taking stock of all of your material possessions. What do I need? What don't I need? What am I putting my energy into? This is not a time to just relax and sit around. It's a time to really figure out, what are my moves going to be? What do I need to do to make sure that I feel secure? To make sure that I feel secure. That's what the universe, that's what the planets are screaming at us to do right now, is that you should not feel, if you knew an earthquake was coming, how would you prepare? If you were in the midst of an earthquake, what would you grab first? What would you do? And that's not to say that there's a literal earthquake coming, but there is something occurring that is going to shake you to your core and make you feel unsafe. And because of that, it's going to reset you to a point where you have to determine what it is you need to feel safe, to feel secure, to feel stable. What is that for you? What is the status of your self-worth? Are you valuing yourself? When you talk about the presidential election and you talk about the debates, how can you watch that and say that we are valuing ourselves collectively? If those are the two best choices that the United States of America has to choose from, then our self-worth is at an all-time low.
Mm,
And we need to check ourselves on an individual basis and say, what do I need to do to be better?
mm,
What do I need to do to be better? Because the leadership in this country isn't good, and it hasn't been good for a long, long time. And so that's on us. That's on every individual that's allowed it to get to this point.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up, and I know we're going to talk about it in this chat today, but it just, I feel like it's coming to the surface right now, which is Pluto, and it, with Aquarius and then back into Capricorn and then back into Aquarius. And so what I'm hearing from you about the candidates that we have and the debate and the election and all of the wildness around that, it feels like with Pluto going back into the sign of Capricorn and it going back into what we've had previously to kind of clear out perhaps or finalize anything that Pluto and Capricorn needs to do, then it's going to move back into Aquarius. And Aquarius to me feels very much like the rise of the people, the rise of humanity. And I don't want to take your thunder on this, but I feel so much like Pluto going into Aquarius is us as people and the collective energy that we're in standing up for ourselves, and that the power no longer sits with the quote unquote elected officials, but instead it's with the people. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about Pluto and what the heck it's doing?
Yes. So there's a lot of historical sort of astrological implications here. So, we talked about Uranus in Taurus. let's not forget that Uranus was transiting through Taurus leading up to the American Revolution. By the time the American Revolution started, it was in Gemini, which is where it's headed next. So there's a lot of similarities here happening astrologically. There's Chiron in Aries, which it was in Aries during the American Revolution. It's in Aries now. We'll get to that later. But Pluto, where Pluto is right now, is where it was during the American Revolution. So I appreciate your optimism in terms of, the people taking back the power. And when you think about Pluto and Aquarius, Aquarius is symbolized by the water bear, and the water bear invented the jug, not for themselves, but for the village, because they realized that if I contribute this innovation to the village, it's going to create greater independence for everyone in the village, so that everyone in the village can tap into what makes them unique to create more innovations that are going to support the rest of the village. And that's the light side. And so, you're talking about the light side of Aquarius, where we're all just like banding together and no one's really in charge. We all have our own responsibilities, and we're holding each other accountable, and we're celebrating each and every individual and what they're bringing to the collective. That's the light side of Aquarius, which I love. And of course, we're all hoping for. But, there is no light without the darkness. The sun goes up, the sun goes down. So, when you think of Aquarius, it's also innovations, and the water bear invented the jug, invented the aqueducts, invented irrigation. It's all been helpful to society. But with these inventions, they solve problems, but they create new problems. So we cannot lose sight of the shadow, or the other side of the coin with Aquarius, which is some sort of group taking control that is going to force everybody into thinking the same, speaking the same, looking the same, doing the same. It's going to pressure people into saying, you're either with us or you're not. And if you're not, you're a problem. And so we need to get rid of you, ostracizing you. You've seen some of that with like the shadow banning on different social media sites during COVID, or, the sort of, just the way that the mainstream will control the narrative, and any outside voices are just silenced. Aquarius, on its light side, accepts all voices and open discourse to make sure that everybody is being heard, because every voice has value, whether or not you agree with the voice or not. It's not about you, it's about us. And there is no us without everyone. And so that's where we really need to focus our attention, and really make sure that when we see people belittling others for their point of view, whatever side you think you're on, you have to remember that we're all here together. And so it's important for everyone to be heard, because why did the revolution happen in the first place? The French Revolution, the American Revolution, these revolutions happen because voices are silenced. And when voices are silenced for an extended period of time, those voices become violent. And that's where they start acting violently, because that's the only way that they can be heard, is through violence rather than words.
What I get a visual of as you say this, Scott, is two groups of people with differing opinions or viewpoints fighting against each other. And I know that there have been people, astrologers, psychics, that have predicted some kind of civil war in the United States, or even states leaving the Union. So this feeling of Aquarius and Capricorn and Pluto doing this dance between those two signs over these next couple of months, it feels like it's the kettle on the stove reaching a boiling point. Does that feel aligned with what you see with this transit?
Absolutely. And I think you're seeing it right here in terms of the election, because it doesn't matter who wins. It really doesn't matter. It could be anyone who wins, whether Biden wins, whether the Democratic Party removes Biden from his candidacy and promotes somebody else into that position, and that person wins, whoever that would be, whether Trump wins, or even if, you know, Robert Kennedy Jr. were to win. I think that regardless, there is going to be a deep dissatisfaction with the greater majority. And because of that, that's why things are going to pop, because there is no leader out there where everyone's going to feel like, okay, well, you know, I didn't vote for him, but I'm okay. I'm like, you would hear that back in the 80s and 90s, you know, it'd be like, well, I don't really like that guy, but you know what, whatever, it's fine. Like I still respect him. He's my president. That's not the outcome moving forward. So like, you know, in predicting the, you know, what's going to happen. I know you have asked me yet, you asked me before, but you know, like my prediction of that is just that there's just going to be a lot of civil unrest, and that people are going to be very dissatisfied, and maybe it blows up into something greater than just angry people in the streets. Maybe there's violence, maybe there's some sort of revolt, revolution, civil war. I could definitely see all that happening. Maybe not right away, but over time in the years following, it could happen, because I know there's going to be more of that simmering rage that's going to persist after the election. Whoever ends up in that office is going to be loathed by too many to create a sense of peace and collective harmony.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And I'll share a bit more about my presidential election later in our talk. But um, I agree with what you were saying. And going back to what you mentioned earlier about finding comfort within your own life and nurturing yourself. And what do you need to feel safe and secure? Um, because there is going to be so much volatility in the external world, the only thing you'll really be able to control is what's happening within your own self, which is why things like meditation, journaling, walks in nature, things like that are going to become so incredibly important. And with enough people doing things like that, it shifts the energy, at least the collective energy. Um, but yeah, it feels a bit spooky is the word that comes to mind about what we're going through. But again, to not drive people into this space of fear, I do believe that before you're born, you're like, I want to go in for this when this is happening. I want to witness this myself. I want to have these lessons. So whatever it is we're going to experience in these coming years, coming decades, um, there is going to be such an opportunity for soul growth, evolution. What side of the Aquarius energy do we want to have over the next 20 years of, are we building the jug, or are we, you know, revolting against control? Like, what does that look like? So there's a lot that's unfolding. Gosh, we have so much to talk about.
There, you know, there's one thing that you mentioned. I'm trying to think now. I lost my train of thought. In terms of the energy, yes, it's about you. So, you know, that I think that's the most important point of all of this, is that the more that you're looking outside of yourself for Trump, Biden, Kennedy to be the person that's going to fix things, the more you're operating in the old paradigm. It's really about you focusing on yourself and what you're bringing to the collective. Like if you want there to be peace, then you have to have peace in your own life. You have to have peace within yourself. You have to have peace within your relationships, within your partnerships, within your home. If there's not peace in that area, If there's not peace in here, then how can there be peace out there?
Yeah.
There can't be.
Yeah.
There can't be. And so that's what this is about, is it's raising our awareness, saying, what do you value? That's the Taurus energy. The Aquarius energy is, what do you want to contribute? What do you want to contribute to the collective, to the community? What are you offering? What are you holding yourself accountable for? Why are you here? What is your role to play in all of this? That is the focus.
Yeah. Isn't it ironic? And I know that astrology is perfection. And I mean, when I look at the different transits and what's happening and what's coming up, I'm like, this is astonishing how amazing astrology is. And I think I find it fascinating that, and I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but the planet Neptune in the final degrees of Pisces and the delusion that can come with it. I think with everything you've been talking about, Scott, it feels like there's going to be even more people that are going into an energy of numbing or checking out or not wanting to be involved in what's happening in the world. They don't want to participate. And so they'll take this backseat position and numb out, whether that's video games or alcohol or drugs, whatever thing they're using to distract themselves. I find it ironic that all of that energy is happening at the same time that we're reaching this boiling point. And it seems like it could be a recipe for, I don't want to say disaster because that sounds dramatic, but it feels like it could be like combustible.
Well, it's again, so to everyone who's listening to this right now, it's create that energetic cocoon for yourself, and don't go into those frequencies that you just talked about. You can't control what people are doing out there in the world, but what you can do is yourself. You can be aware if you are wanting to drink alcohol more, or if you are wanting to play video games till the sun comes up, or if you're diving into whatever the fantasy is. It's about being aware that you're doing that, being aware that you're escaping, and really being conscious of what you're escaping from. Why am I feeling this urge to escape right now? Where is that coming from? Where within myself have I been triggered? Am I feeling guilt, shame, regret, blame out of my control? And so I need to just be into the fantasy that I can control, because Pisces is really about letting go of control. It's about taking your hands off the wheel and saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm good, because I know that I'm connected to all that is and all that ever was and all that ever will be, and things that could be perceived as good and things that could be perceived as bad could happen to me. But ultimately, I'm one with the universe, and I'm going through this experience for whatever reason, to evolve, for my soul to evolve and grow. And I'm here to accept this pathway that I'm on. And so when you look at this full moon that's actually coming up here on the night of the 20th, morning of the 21st of July, that's happening at the 29th degree in Capricorn, with the sun at the 29th degree in Cancer, both aligning with Neptune at 29 degrees in Pisces. This is the second full moon in Capricorn this year. We've got 2 Capricorn full moons, 2 Capricorn new moons this year, as opposed to next year, we just have 1 Capricorn full moon. Why is that? Because the full moon is a release, and we have to get in touch with our relationship to authority, our relationship to ourself as the authority. When I think of Capricorn, it's the goat. There's the acronym for the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Michael Jordan's the GOAT, or Tom Brady's the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Well, that's that person that's standing on the pinnacle. at the top of the mountain. Only they stand there. Everyone else is beneath them. That's the energy that we need to release. Get off of your high horse, standing on the top of the mountain, pointing at everyone else, telling them how great you are and how they need to look up to you. We need to come down from the mountain and say, no, we're in this together. Like, I'm clear about what I want to achieve, my goals and ambitions, but as Pluto transits from Capricorn to Aquarius, we need to talk about what we're going to achieve together. What are we achieving together? And so bringing in that Neptune energy, it's about having compassion for anything that you haven't achieved. Like, if you're holding yourself to these expectations where you're like, no, I need to achieve this or my life is never going to be complete. And along the way, you might be stepping on people, climbing up to the top of the mountain, putting other people down. No, that needs to be released. It's about having empathy for others and compassion for yourself. That it's not about you achieving every single goal that you've ever wanted to achieve at any expense. That's literally what the political parties have taught us, that they are willing to put aside any sense of ethics, any sense of what is right, what is wrong. It's not about right and wrong. It's about winning. It's about winning at all costs. And that is that Capricorn energy. And when we've got Pluto at the 29th degree in Capricorn and Neptune at the 29th degree in Capricorn for 2 months,
Neptune and Pisces, right?
Neptune and Pisces. I say something else. So yeah, my mind gets away.
We got Capricorn and Pisces that are doing a thing.
Pluto and Capricorn and Neptune and Pisces at the 29th degree for 2.5 months, from September 2nd to November 18th. I think that's when Pluto moves into Aquarius. That is a period for us to really just release that win at all costs sort of mentality.
And it makes me think of, like we were talking about, possible wars and revolutions and going against authority and our relationship to authority figures. This last part that you mentioned about giving yourself compassion for the goals that you haven't reached. I think if there is so much volatility happening in the world around us, it may not be aligned with the timing of you wanting to, let's say, launch a retail store in your local town, right? Because you might see all these things falling apart and things burning to the ground so that we can restructure them. And so if let's use the example of opening up at your own retail store on Main Street, USA, and you're watching all these things happen, and your self-worth has been tied to, oh, I am going to do this thing. And now the thing either can't happen right now, or it has to look very differently than what you viewed as successful. It's going to require you to go inside of yourself and ask, why am I anchoring my self-worth to these things outside of myself that I can point to and show people that I have proof that I'm worthy, I have proof that I'm great, instead of going within and knowing it already within yourself without any kind of external proof. So I think there's going to be this duality between not being able to point to that external worthiness anymore, at least not to the degree we've been able to. And instead, it's pointing that finger back to ourselves and saying, I'm just going to have to find this within myself, which could create this huge opportunity for a lot of deep healing within ourselves. Does that all make sense? Did that come out right?
Yes. I mean, it's just playing the hand that you're dealt and making the right choice for whatever that is. It's like, I'm just thinking of this movie. I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of the Fast and Furious movies. and it's one of the more recent ones. And it's interesting because like the Vin Diesel character, Vin Diesel's a Cancer. And so you think about like this full moon in Capricorn, the sun's in Cancer, and Vin Diesel, this character, very true to his sign, is all about family, and at his core, he's very kind and caring, and there's a scene where he's in Cuba and his nephew or his cousin is in debt to like the town heavy in Havana, and the town heavy is going to take his car, his cousin's car, because he owes him money. And Vin Diesel's like, no. He's like, I see you're trying to hustle my cousin, but let's do it this way. We'll race, And so they race, and he races in his cousin's car, which is like this horrible car. It's the worst car on the island, they say. And the other guy's racing in the best car on the island. And they're racing for Vin Diesel has a really nice car, and he's like, if you win, you can have my car, but if I win, then I get your car. And they do this crazy race through Havana, and Vin Diesel wins. And at the end, the guy is very humbled and gives him his keys. And he's like, I don't want your car. I got your respect, and that's enough for me. And so it's not about the prize, that thing at the top of the mountain. He's already proven that he is he's proven his worth, but he's shown respect to the other. And there's this other moment in the film where this other character asks him why he did that. And he says, I did it because it changed the man. It's not about the reward. The reward is actually changing the man by doing the right thing, by making the right choice. And that's what we need to think about, how our choices are going to affect the community, because the choice that Vin Diesel made, that character in that film, made it so that guy, the town heavy, the big, the big boss of the town, is going to be more fair and fair-minded in the way that he approaches the community, because he wasn't embarrassed in front of everyone. He was respected. And so we need to think about how we want to respect each and every person that we come into contact with. And if you have that dream to create to have like a storefront in your town, and you're not able to because of whatever happens, what else can you do to contribute to the community? What else can you do? What else can you bring to the collective?
Yeah, no, I mean, as you speak, I'm like, oh man, I can think of so many different examples of things that I see in the world. And even for me personally, I joined a committee that it's an extension of city council in the city I live in, so that I can give back in a more formal way. And so maybe even look to, what charities or what groups are doing things that are making an impact in your community, and how can you join and use your energy for good. So we're all getting tapped on the shoulder to do that. Are we going to be paying attention and say, yes, okay, I'll do something? Or are we going to go into, I'm just going to go hide out. I'm going to, go bury myself in something else, so I look like I'm distracted, so people won't ask me for things, or I can hide and I'm safer when I hide. And there's going to be a lot of those dynamics that come up. Yeah. So
the thing is
you're not
going to be able to hide during this Pluto and Aquarius season. The next 20 years, it's going to be really hard to hide. As you see, like, it's hard for the government and the political parties to hide just the poor job that they're doing. They can't hide it anymore. If these are really the two best options, then it's something is out in the open that they really don't want out in the open. There's something wrong. You can't hide during this Aquarius season. Aquarius is a sign that's coming out of the closet. Pluto's the planet of secrets. And so all the secrets are coming out of the closet. And so hopefully it's going to invite people, because they're going to be forced to be out in the community, to get involved, to be more involved. And when more people are involved, then you're going to realize that we're not that different from each other. It was actually these organizations that were trying to keep us separated, that were trying to make us think that we're so different from each other, but really we're not. We're more different from the red and the blue than we are from each other. We're
Yep.
more different from them than we are from each other.
Mhm.
That's the truth there.
Yeah, the next 20 years, I mean, we're going to get to the end of the next 2 decades, and so much is not going to look anything like it looks today.
So
Um,
different.
so different. I mean, just
Mhm.
like you could say that about the last 20 years. I mean, I don't think Pluto was in Capricorn for quite 20 years. I don't think, but
It
you
was
would
since
you would know.
2008, 2008.
Okay.
So it's been about 15 years, 15, 16 years. And a lot's changed, yes. But I think there's going to be even greater changes during this period. It's going to be a revolution of society. Society is not going to look the same. I mean, like you said, maybe there are states that split off, or maybe there are, just whole new communities of people that rise up, and it's like they're separate from, the United States may not be united anymore. I don't know. It's really hard to say, but I know it's not going to look anything like it looks right now.
Yeah, I agree.
And,
I
and
think
and when you
there's
look back at the history of the United States, it might look more different than any other 20-year period. Like if you go back to 1776 to 2025, that 250-year period, this next 20 years might maybe be the greatest shifting of what society looks like compared to any 20-year period in that 250, 270-year period.
Yeah, I agree. I do think lines will be redrawn in the US. Wouldn't surprise me if Texas is amongst the first states to leave the union. I feel that psychically, but I've lived in a few places in Texas, but also with the eclipse path going directly and crossing
Mm.
over the state of Texas. I think Texas is like one of the first, if not the first, to say we're leaving.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I also get that energy around Idaho. And then they've been working on a project called Greater Idaho, where they're hoping to redraw some of the state lines up there. So with Texas and Idaho already like talking about it or threatening it, and with all the volatility that's going to be coming up, it wouldn't surprise me if there are states that start leaving. So I think the history books, the geography books are going to have so many chapters about these next 20 years. But what a time to be alive. I mean, it's going to get crazy.
Yes, no, it's exciting. It really is. But the thing that I want to ask you is, like, even if Texas were to split off, or Idaho or any other state, what I'm curious to know is, are they really going to be, is that going to be real, or is that going to be a facade? Because like the United States is a corporation, and each state is a corporation underneath the umbrella of the United States. And so, who owns this corporation? Who's really in charge of this corporation? Is it the Queen or the King, or is it the Vatican? We're not really our own country. We're connected to something else that has a global influence, global impact. And maybe what happens is similar to what happened in the American Revolution, where it wasn't really a split from England. They just decided to stop fighting the war because they realized that it was going to be too much money. It's not worth it. But when time came, when time came to pass and America was weakened by the Civil War, they came back in. That's what some people say. I don't know if it's true or not, but it just makes me wonder. It feels like, yeah, Texas, okay, go off and do you, but then there's going to be people working underneath in the shadows somewhere that are going to maintain their control over what the state thinks that they're independent, but they're really not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they really do leave. And it could be that the Aquarius energy of revealing the secrets could be part of what's unveiled to us as to who's running things, who's really ultimately running things. And you brought up the
exactly.
monarch.
Because
I think
Biden
there's,
is not in
yeah,
charge. That's the most
no,
obvious,
yeah,
like that. But like, I've never thought the president was really in charge,
yeah,
but now
mm-mm,
it's so obvious that they're not.
mm, yeah,
But
yeah. They're not in charge. Also, I see psychically um, either dissolution or massive change to the monarch. Because when I look at the energy of King Charles, his two boys, even Kate Middleton, all of it feels really murky. And it feels like Biden feels to me, where I'm like, oh, he's not in charge, just like you said. There's
Mhm.
something with the monarch that feels like it just unravels and falls apart. And it could be connected to lies that are being told about Kate. And even like things that I see on, there was something she did recently where she was there in person and she's, in that horse and carriage going through the square, whatever that is. I was watching a clip of it and my spirit team said, that's not her. It's not
Mhm.
her. So whether it's a body double or whatever it is, I don't know, but they said it's not her. So I think that there's some huge secret that family is holding that I think is going to get revealed and could ultimately lead to part of the reason why it breaks down. But if that dissolves and our office of presidency of the United States of America dissolves, there's just a lot of rewriting, reconfiguring what our country, their country stands for. So that's why I think these 20 years are going to be a game changer, because just like the tower card in tarot, the tower is going to burn to the ground.
Mhm.
But then what are you going to do with, from the ashes? What do you then build?
Exactly. Yes. And that's why everyone needs to really be clear about what they value, what's important to them, to make choices that are considerate of those around you as well. We want to
Yeah.
rebuild in that energy.
Yes. Yes. It's whew.
Yes.
I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm going to need a nap before I go into the next 20 years. I just want to talk about middle of August. You had
Mm,
mentioned that Mars and Jupiter in Gemini are going to square Saturn and Pisces, and we also
yep.
have a Mercury retrograde in there. I think all the Mercury retrogrades this year are in fire, correct?
Well, this year, the Mercury retrograde in August begins in Virgo and ends in Leo,
Oh,
and then
okay,
it moves. So
okay,
it splits. Yeah. So, and then the final retrograde of the year. Let's see. So the first one was, let me see. So yeah, that was Capricorn, and it's exited. Yeah, so it was Sagittarius and Capricorn. That's the one that started the year. This one is the final one of the year is all through Sagittarius. But
okay,
this Leo one is also in Virgo. So
okay.
it's both earth and
Yeah, a lot
fire.
of a lot of mixed bags.
Yeah.
Mars and Jupiter in Gemini squaring Saturn and Pisces.
Hmm.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
feels
I
like a
mean,
whole lot of stuff.
yeah, I feel like August is going to be a very intense month. As we get to August here, let's see. So that is going to be, like you see, here's Saturn at 18 degrees, Jupiter's at 14 as we enter August. And by the time we get to right around here, let's see, August 10th is when Jupiter moves within 2 degrees of Saturn, and then Mars gets there at the same degree right here, like mid-August, August 14th, 15th, could be very intense. Mercury's retrograde here in Leo. That's coming back and squaring Uranus. I mean, it feels like these days, especially like August 18th, like the 15th to the 18th, and even beyond, like to the where the sun is squaring Uranus. So it's like, God, like that week from the 15th to the 22nd, or even back here to the, let's just say the 10th to the 22nd of August, very intense. So what's happening there? There's a lot of combustible energy with Mercury in Leo. That's speaking from your heart, squaring Uranus in Taurus. Like the values are coming up. It's a fire earth square, fire scorching earth, earth extinguishing fire. It's like maybe you're trying to express what you value, but from your heart, but someone else is throwing dirt on your fire. It could also mean, I think the key to this one is really like with Mercury in Leo, we need to have the courage to listen. We need to have the courage to listen. With Jupiter and Mars transiting through Gemini, the sign of communication, we need to have the courage to listen. That's what Mercury is, the planet of communication. It's transiting through Leo, the sign that rules the heart of the lion. That's courage, listening with courage. And then you have Mars, the planet of action, the planet of courage, transiting through the sign of communication, Gemini. Jupiter, the god of thunder, also there. On the other side, there could be a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, a lot of violent communication. You bring in that Saturn energy from Pisces, which is squaring Jupiter. So the planet of restriction, Saturn, squaring the planet of expansion, Jupiter. Saturn in Pisces, which is the unconscious, which is bringing our unconscious into reality. It's like those unconscious thoughts are sprouting up through your brain, and it's like, it doesn't feel good. This is why we're escaping through drugs and alcohol, Netflix and chill, binge watching, doom scrolling. This is what you need to do with this energy is to, whatever comes up, hold yourself accountable for your thoughts. Take responsibility for the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame that you are experiencing up here, and take responsibility to show yourself compassion so you can integrate those thought patterns and memories with understanding, forgiveness, and love for yourself. And in doing so, if you're integrating those thought patterns and memories with understanding, forgiveness, and love for yourself, then you're taking responsibility to be empathetic to others. And if you're being empathetic to others, then you have the courage to listen, to recognize that, you know what, there's something going on in that person that's screaming at me, that's yelling at me, that doesn't like my point of view. They're suffering up here. They're suffering in here. They feel pain. They feel guilt. They feel shame. They feel regret. I can empathize with them. I understand that. So let me ask them more questions. Let me hear more of what they have to say. And the more questions you ask them from your heart, having the courage to listen from your heart, really that happened? Okay, I understand. Well, so why do you, explain to me, you support Biden. Explain that to me. You support Trump. What is your reasoning behind that? They're going to get hot. They're going to yell. They're going to scream. Okay, well, tell me more about that. What does that mean? How did that happen to you? And eventually you're going to get to a point where they're going to start to calm down because they can really tell that you're listening to them because the questions that you're asking them are relating to what they're sharing with you. And when you're in that frequency, by the time you get to the end of not needing to ask them any more questions because you truly understand where they're coming from. You truly are empathizing with their perspective to the point where you're like, I still don't want to vote for Trump. I still don't want to vote for Biden, but I do understand why you are. And even though I don't like that, I respect it. I respect it because I understand where you're coming from.
Mhm.
And when you're in that place, then you're truly empathizing with them. And from there, we understand each other. And we realize that we're not as far apart that we thought we were.
Yeah, beautifully stated. What it brings to mind is that during that period of August 10th through the 22nd, it's fights that lead to epiphanies.
Yes.
If you approach it
Yes.
in an open-minded, open heart way and approach it with the vibration of curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not going to be about out yelling or out fighting someone.
Mm-hmm.
Because the moment that you do open up your heart, as you said, and start getting curious and asking them questions, not from a place to try to prove them wrong, but from a place of genuinely trying to understand them,
Mm-hmm. That's it.
then you will have insights about yourself and about humans. And like you said, how we are more alike than we are different. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I feel like we talked a lot about Pluto going into Capricorn September 1st to mid-November. So just to recap for folks, so Pluto going back into Capricorn, it's a lot of unfinished business that maybe we didn't quite get done before Pluto went into Aquarius. And so now it's going back into Capricorn. And Scott had shared in our meeting before we came on and recorded this, that there could be themes around the abuse of power, feeling unhinged, and there could even be a connection to real estate crash because Pluto had gone into Capricorn in 2008 when there were a lot of issues with real estate. So we could see that theme come back up. Is there anything else about Pluto and Capricorn that you want to mention?
I mean, just the reason why real estate is the thing is because Pluto rules real estate, or not Pluto, Capricorn rules real estate, and Capricorn rules government. So early September to mid-November, I don't know. It just feels like something's going to pop. I could be wrong, of course, but it feels like something is going to become unhinged in terms of government or real estate or the markets, maybe to sway the election in some way. Who knows? Uh, I just, the thing that I'm most curious about is whoever's pulling the King Charles and Joe Biden puppet strings. I have to imagine that this person, these individuals, they have a very clear understanding of everything that we're talking about right now. And, in their diabolical James Bond villain minds, they've planned for every sort of outcome. And the outcome that they want is division. And if there is a financial collapse, people are going to become desperate. And when people are desperate, they turn on each other. And, that's what happened during COVID too. And so, what is your gift? What is your gift? What is your gift to share with society? That is what is going to save you from the chaos. I don't share, like in 2019, in the fall of 2019, I was telling so many people, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen in the first quarter of 2020, but I know that there's going to be some sort of dramatic grab of power, and people are going to feel disempowered in some way. So what are you doing to empower yourself? Me personally, just like this energy moving into the fall, I'm looking forward to it because it's all how you're working with the energy. You know, those COVID years were two of the best years of my life because I was very clear about what I was doing and what I needed to do moving forward, just as I am right now in what I'm doing. And so get that clarity in terms of your values, what's important to you, what you're working to achieve, what you need to feel empowered, and how you want to share that power with others. How are you helping others? How are you helping the community? How are you giving back through the work that is helping you feel like you're achieving? From that frequency, and maybe you have to downsize if there's financial crisis or whatever, maybe that something like that happens. But it's going to help you get clear on what truly is important to you.
Yeah, I hear all of that. One thing they were showing me, my spirit team, as you were reminding us of the power within us, they showed symbolically, of course, I don't want people to freak out, but houses sliding down a hill.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that there will be changes to some markets with housing. And it reminds me of something that they were showing me the last few days, which is more and more people leaving the cities. So if we think about the rise of potentially war or fighting, aggression, that there will be people really feeling like, whew, I don't want to be around all the people or all the energy. I don't want to be around the looting or the riots. So I'm going to go move to the outskirts or, to a farm or something like that. So I think real estate could change because people will be leaving the cities and going to rural or land and places where there won't be anybody around them for miles. So depending on where you live or where you own property, you could just see a change in the dynamics of what people want to buy. And so it's just something that comes in as far as psychic predictions that seem to align with that time period as well. So
Yes.
we're looking at early September to mid-November is when you may see more of the power, unhinged real estate, government boiling. So yeah, and it's funny, Scott, I shouldn't say it's funny, but it is interesting. I have heard some astrologers say that, 2024 is actually pretty tame compared to 2025, 2026.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
oh God. So I feel like we're getting folks prepared for each thing, stage by stage. But we got to get through the beginning of all of this first, and then it'll probably morph into more things. But we'll walk you through it when that time comes. No need to worry
Yes.
about that now. You did mention a few things to me earlier about October, that there's a lot of tension around Libra planets squaring Pluto. And you also mentioned Jupiter, Chiron, energy dynamics for about a month with that. So what do you just get for like an overall vibe for October? Because that's happening in the middle of what we just talked about with Pluto and Capricorn. So what are you
Yes.
getting for this Libra, Pluto, Jupiter, Chiron stuff?
Well, so it feels like there's going to be disruption to peace. Mars transiting through Libra, squaring Pluto in Capricorn. Literally, when that happened is when Hamas attacked Israel. That's when that whole thing began. And so we're going to have in October Venus and Mercury and the Sun all transiting through Libra, squaring Pluto in Capricorn. So it feels like there's disruption to peace in October. The Jupiter in Gemini, sextile Chiron in Aries that's bringing about more in terms of having the courage to listen, and to be authentic in expressing yourself. Everything needs to boil to the surface right now, and that's what's going to create the conflict. Is we can't hide anymore. And all these people that want to go move out into the wilderness or something, that's fine. You do you. But the thing is the problems you can't escape. They're going to find you one way or another. They will always find you. It doesn't matter if you're living off the grid somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Eventually, it finds you. So you have to decide when to face the conflict at some point in your life. You can only run for so long. And that's just the facts. There is no running from conflict in this life. There's the sun rises, the sun sets. There's tension of the opposites everywhere you go. And so there's always going to be conflict. It's about learning how to, and like, so the lighter side of this Libra energy squaring Pluto and Capricorn is about learning how to deal with conflict, learning how to be peaceful through the conflict, learning how to be in that position of authority where you can be peaceful and not threatened. That's what we need to do here. Running from the conflict is not going to create peace. It just perpetuates the problem. If you want peace, you have to face the conflict. And this is teaching us how to face the conflict by opening our hearts, by being peaceful, by listening, by asking questions, by being compassionate with ourselves and empathetic to others.
You're giving us our orders. Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those videos that over the next few months, people are just going to want to listen back to it, bookmark it, because there's so many things that are going to be occurring over the next few months. Before I share my presidential prediction,
Yes.
I want you to talk a little bit about, you had mentioned to me November 2nd, which is a couple of days before the election.
Oh, right.
With Mars opposing Pluto.
Oh,
so this
right.
is right before the election. So what's that mean?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it means it's the god of war opposing the god of death. And like I said, the last time Mars made a hard aspect with Pluto was the beginning of the Hamas-Israel conflict, which was Mars in Libra squaring Pluto in Capricorn. So now it's Mars in Cancer opposing Pluto in Capricorn. I don't know. I mean, is it some other kind of big attack, war, something happening? I mean, Mars transiting through the fourth sign, Cancer, bringing that warlike energy to your home. I mean, this is everything leading up to, let's see, Mars moves into Cancer. That happens, when does that happen? That's happening on July 20th. So from July 20th to November 2nd, Mars is transiting through Cancer. I mean, that's through August with all those other transits we were taught. There's going to be a lot of disruption in the home. So it feels like there's a lot of conflict happening. Like this is, brother screaming at brother over who they're voting, father and son, mother and daughter, just tension in the home over what's going on out in the world. But the opposition to Pluto in Capricorn energetically, like what we need to focus on so that we don't get sucked into the vortex of war, is having the courage to be kind, caring, and nurturing to others, to transform that energy of authority that says, I'm no better than you. We both put our pants on one leg at a time. We both breathe the same air. We both need food and water to live on this planet. You have certain attributes about yourself that I don't have, just as I have some about me that you don't have. So let's have the courage to be kind to each other, to care for one another, and to nurture those positive parts of ourselves so that we can be stronger together, so that we can merge power as one authority that is supporting everyone around us, the family, the home. That's what this is about. What it means out there in the world where most people are completely oblivious to what is happening cosmically, energetically, and they're just focused on their screens and they're going by what they're being told by the media. It's going to create a lot of chaos out there, and there could be fires in the streets. I don't know. There could be war happening in a new place. Maybe it's Ukraine. Maybe it's the Middle East. Maybe it's someplace new. Maybe it's people campaigning one side versus the other, and they're actually going to blows. I mean, we see it happening already. It's so strange to me. Like when I saw what was happening at like UCLA earlier this year, I'm like, these people are just punching each other. They're just, why? Because they feel like they're not being heard. And so in order to avert that energy, we have to listen to one another.
Mm-hmm.
We have to listen.
Yeah. I feel there's this imagery that I'm being shown. And before you said the UCLA thing, I was being shown the elections and people like physically fighting each other before the election happens. I do think now this can change, but what I'm seeing presented on the timeline right now is that there will be some big mass distraction before the election happens. Mm-hmm. So it feels to me like this election will be like none other we've ever had. I don't feel like a winner is crowned on election night. I feel like Biden, to me, is not running. I actually thought he died a few years ago. I remember it being, I remember the 4th of July. He was on TV talking about something, and I got this huge rush of that he was going to die, to the point where I went to the store, bought extra batteries, flashlights, everything. Because I'm like, if he dies, are we going to be seen as weak as a country and somebody's going to try something? So I felt like he died a few years ago. And every time I look at his energy, just like you said earlier, it's like he's a puppet on strings. So he's not the one running it. I don't think he is the presidential candidate, even though he said, I'm not going to back down. I don't see him being on the ballot. I actually feel more of a rise in Kamala's energy. So it wouldn't surprise me if they run her as the presidential candidate, but I do feel a male as a VP that would be her running mate, somebody that we'd already be familiar with. And it feels like it's like they just like stick them in really quick. But the energy when I look at like the election, if I were to put Kamala and Trump in there, it feels, going back to what we were talking about earlier about the Taurus energy and the earth shaking, it feels very shaky, and it doesn't feel like either party wins. So it goes along with what you were saying about how there's going to be so much anger because no one really feels like they won. And either way you slice it, if it is the Democratic Party, you have a bunch of Republicans that are really angry that may take to the streets, because there's already a lot of people who feel like the last election was not done fairly, whatever their opinion is, right? So they're already primed and ready for a fight.
Exactly.
So if the Democratic Party wins, then there's going to be a fight. If the Republican Party wins, there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of people that are going to, I feel, massive protests, violence in the streets. So I feel like nobody wins is my prediction, is nobody wins. And I don't see one president of the United States running the United States. So it lends to what we were also talking about earlier with different geographic lines for states, because I don't feel that there's one figurehead that will be over all of our states. So to me, it's like this tower card with the office of presidency, with the states that they are now. It feels like it all starts dissolving, and that it is chaotic and weird for years. And then there starts to become this sense, this energy around, well, now what are we going to build now that it's all been dissolved? Which is that Aquarius energy, the higher side of it, the higher form of, well, now what do we want to do with this now that we have imploded everything? So yeah, let me see if I had anything else on here. No, I think that's about it. Oh, I did have written down just the lies being revealed. And I know we've seen some of that over the last few years of things that we weren't sure if it was true or not, that like the truth comes out. So I think that there's like this strange energy around the truth being revealed to us, not knowing what the truth is, multiple variations of the truth, not being able to trust authority figures. So there's this strangeness around, even if we're told the truth, we may not even believe it because there's been so many lies. So going back to what we've been talking about today of like going within and knowing your own barometer, trusting your own intuition, that is going to be perhaps life-saving in knowing where your true north is and what you believe and what you value. Because if you don't have this straight inside of you and you're listening to everyone else, or you're locked into one specific news station, it could feel very chaotic. So I do think there's even more of a rise of light workers, of astrologers, of real legitimate psychics, like people that are working with light to help people really tune into themselves and what they're feeling is actually true, rather than listening to everything else outside of them.
Yes. Yes, that's what we're here to learn, is to how to trust our own intuition. We're living in the age of Pisces. And so, this is why nothing has been clear. Nothing. Like, when did the age of Pisces begin? Supposedly at the birth of Christ, which is why, turns the fisher of men, and that the symbol of Christ is the fish, and he turns the water into wine, which is another symbol of Pisces. But we don't know the truth of the story of Christ, and it's muddled here and there. And then, just even looking at the last 100 years, all the different things that have occurred, the Kennedy assassination, what happened there. There's so much confusion. Is Biden, who knows anything? We don't know. But what this is teaching us as we close out this age of Pisces in the next 150 years, collectively, we should have very strong intuition of knowing what is right, what is wrong. It doesn't matter necessarily what the truth is, or if I can see the truth specifically in material form. I have a sense, a feeling of knowing whether this is right or wrong. That's what the Pisces energy is about. So as we get caught in this sort of greater confusion, that's going to come about after this election, it's going to challenge our intuition.
Yeah. I hope we didn't, cause anyone to cry or go hide in a closet after listening to all this. I I think the way I look at this, and we've mentioned this, is it's a great adventure.
Mhm.
And yes, there will be things that really slide sideways, and there'll be moments where we're really not sure what's going to happen next. But I believe that Earth, the classroom of Earth, our incarnation here, it's all temporary.
Mhm.
We're here to grow, and then we return to the other side.
Mm.
And everything that happens here is a learning opportunity. And some lessons are really, really hard. And we also have moments of extreme joy. But it's part of being in this human costume. So whatever happens here, good, bad, and different, it's all temporary.
Mm.
And we'll all return to where we came from. So if we can see it through the lens of curiosity and how temporary all of this really is, then I
Exactly.
hope that that helps us walk through it with a little bit more ease.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
pulled a deck of cards when I was setting up to record. I don't know why my Zoom hand keeps getting raised. I'm not
Oh,
touching
because
anything.
okay, it's because if you open in the upper left corner there, or right corner, there's like a green, looks like a green camera,
Hmm.
and you click on that, and then there'll be like a little drop down menu with your picture,
Oh,
and
okay.
there's something
Oh,
that
yeah.
says reactions, and you need to turn
Oh,
off reactions.
oh, okay. Yeah, because I
That's
haven't
why.
been touching anything, so I don't
I
know
know, I
why
know,
it
but
keeps.
it does this thing with reactions. Like if
Oh,
you
all
give the
right. Well,
thumbs up, then it will
oh
do the
yeah, I've
thumbs
seen
up,
those. Yeah, I don't know.
so.
So whoever is watching this video, maybe you'll have the same issues with your Zoom. But so anyway, I was setting up for the video today, and I got this nudge to pull out this deck. It's called Notes from the Universe, and it's Mike Dooley.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just going to pick a card in
Yeah,
closing and
let's
see
do
what,
it.
yeah. And as a reminder, I know I mentioned this at the beginning, Scott's work is the weeklytransit.com. He wrote a book called Basics of Astrology. My website is spiritandspark.com, and I'll include everything in the notes below. So let's see what card we got. Oh, I love when it just lines up with everything we've just talked about. So it says, always kindness prevails,
Hmm.
no matter how things appear, nor how humbling a task, nor how unkind they've been. Kindness always prevails.
Yes, yes, beautiful,
Yeah, couldn't have been
beautiful.
a more perfect card. Now I understand why
Hmm.
they wanted me to pull that.
Yes.
Scott, thank you so much for all of your wisdom, your direction, your guidance. I can't wait to do this again with you.
Yes.
And yeah, let's just keep curious.
Yes. Thank you, Dallisa. So much fun. Great to see you. Great to connect with you always.
Yay! All right, we'll do it again soon.
Yes.